Hey guys, my name is Matt Johnson, and with the announcement of the A7R IV, I feel like Sony has confused a lot of video shooters, myself included, with the math that they're using to number their cameras. When Sony first launched the series of A7 cameras, they followed a very set order to this release. We first saw the A7, then the A7R, then the A7S. Then about a year later, we saw the A7 II, the A7R II, then the A7S II. All was right in the world of Sony math. Then in October 2017, Sony screwed up the entire order by announcing the A7R III first. Thankfully, pretty soon after that, they got back on track because in mid-2018, they announced and released the Sony A7 III. So, all logic would dictate that the next camera that we would be seeing from Sony would be the A7S III. Well, on July 16th, 2019, Sony announced the A7R IV, which as you can now tell has broken math for all of us. I feel like Sony may pull a fast one and just release the A7S IV and skip the A7S III entirely at this point. It would be similar to Apple skipping the iPhone 9 and going directly from the iPhone 8 to the iPhone 10. Today I want to talk to you about the mythical A7S III though, and I want to share with you my theory about where this camera is and why we haven't seen it yet. So, please put on your tinfoil hat with me and let's dig into this theory. Let's first go back to 2014 when Sony announced and released the first A7S. This camera recorded 1080p internally and 4K with an external recorder. A little over 1 year later, in 2015, we saw Sony announce the A7S II, a camera that uses the same sensor as the A7S, but now records 4K internally at up to 30 frames per second. This was kind of the golden age of Sony in my opinion because they were releasing cameras and innovating at such a fast pace. Every year we were getting several new full-frame camera bodies and it was so exciting. I feel like Sony was unstoppable. They were going to be releasing new cameras every year at this pace and there would constantly be new features with better video quality and image resolution. Then literal disaster struck in April 2016 when a magnitude 7.0 earthquake struck Sony's sensor factory in Kumamoto, Japan. Looking at photos of this earthquake aftermath, it was a huge blow to Sony's sensor business and it would clearly take them some time to recover. If 2014 and 2015 were the golden age of Sony cameras, 2016 through roughly today could be considered the dark ages from a video standpoint. In that time, Sony released the A6500, A9, A7R III, and A7 III. And while all these cameras had new features, none of them were particularly revolutionary from a video quality standpoint, with the maximum frame rate, resolution, and bitrate remaining unchanged since the Sony A7S II. My theory is that the Kumamoto earthquake put a significant delay on the development of Sony's sensors from a video standpoint, and they still haven't fully recovered from it. Bold claim there, Matt. What other proof do you have to back it up? Alright, come back with me again in time to 2017 when Sony released the A7R III camera. Remember how the A7S II was just reusing the same sensor from the original A7S released a year prior? Well, in a similar fashion, the A7R III in 2017 was just reusing the same sensor from the A7R II released in 2015. Sony loves doing this. They will first release a camera with a brand new sensor, and then a year or two later, they will release an updated version of that camera with the exact same sensor, but more features built out around it. The main thing I want you to focus on is that since 2015, we have not seen a new camera sensor from Sony other than the A9 and the A7 III. And to be clear, it looks like Sony views the A9 as a completely separate high-end photo camera. It has the same exact video specs as other Sony mirrorless cameras from 2015, and it doesn't even have video profiles like S-Log. The A7 III, on the other hand, is using a newer sensor, but the video quality, frame rate, bitrate, bit depth, and resolution all remain the same as the A7S II from 2015. My point is this: it has effectively been 4 years since the release of an updated full-frame sensor from Sony. The new A7R IV announced this July is the first new sensor that is in an A7R camera since 2015 before that earthquake. It took Sony 4 years to make it happen, and my theory is that the Kumamoto earthquake is to blame. That same earthquake is the reason that we haven't seen an A7S III yet, because it was delayed. That's my theory. There is one hole in it though, and that is that the A7R IV, which was just announced, does not actually improve on the video specs of the A7S II that came 4 years before it. The A7R IV still shoots 4K at 100 megabits per second at up to 30 frames per second with 8-bit color. sensor. Keeping in mind that Sony likes to use their sensors in multiple cameras though, I wouldn't be surprised if they were intentionally holding back the capabilities of the A7R4's camera sensor so that way it doesn't steal from the A7S III's hype. If the A7R4 was announced and it was recording in 8K or something like that, I feel like Sony would sell a ton of A7R4s and not as many people would want to buy the A7S III. That said, we may see an A7R5 released in a year or two with the same exact sensor but massively improved video specs. Only time will tell. With that, thank you so much for watching my theory about why the Sony A7S III hasn't been released yet. I realize it may be a little crazy. I would love if you would tell me in the comments below why you think the A7S III hasn't been released. It is also a huge help to me if you would consider liking this video and subscribing if you want to see more Sony videos like this in the future. Thank you so much for watching and have a great day.
Pushing, yeah. Straight to the top. I gotta keep pushing, yeah.